Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Word Problem Wednesday. We are still talking about geometry and shapes this week, but today we are focusing more on the different kinds of lines that make up shapes. So just as a review, last week we talked about how polygons, they are two-dimensional shapes, so they're flat shapes. They're closed, which means all sides close the shape in. There's not an opening to get inside the shape. And it has to have three or more sides, angles, and vertices or corners. So that could be a triangle, a square, a trapezoid, an octagon, a decagon, which is a 10-sided shape. But a circle would not count because a circle is not made up of line segments or any straight edges. So that would not work. So all of these shapes are polygons. They are made up of straight edges, and they have three or more sides and angles and corners. So there are two different categories of polygons. There are regular polygons and irregular polygons. So remember, we think of regular, if we say something's regular, it's kind of normal. But if it's irregular, it's a little bit weird. So we have two describing definitions over here. We have all sides and angles are equal, and all sides and angles are not equal. So which one of those do you think goes best with regular polygons? All sides and angles are equal or not equal? If it is a regular polygon, it is all equal. So that would be shapes like this. All of the sides on this triangle are the same length, and even the angles on the inside, they're the same acute angles. With this octagon over here, each segment, each side is the same length, and all of the angles inside are the same obtuse wide angle. So regular polygons, everything's equal. Irregular polygons, they are not equal. They are a little bit odd shaped. There are some short sides, there's some long sides, and the angles inside are not all the same either. So regular, all equal, irregular, not equal. Now, these terms should be a review for you, talking about pentagons, octagons, and hexagons. And we have these descriptions on the sides: 8 sides and 8 angles, 5 sides and 5 angles, or 6 sides and 6 angles. Which one of those goes with pentagon? A pentagon has 5 sides and 5 angles. There's even the government building called the Pentagon, and it is because it has 5 sides to the building. Now, an octagon, think about octopus. Oct goes with 8. An octagon has 8 sides and 8 angles. They do not all have to be equal, but sometimes they are, like this red one over here. So oct, like octopus, means 8. And hexagons, all that we have left, 6 sides and 6 angles. And I always remember that hex, the word has an X in it, just like the word 6 has an X in it. So a hexagon has 6 sides and angles. Another review term that we've talked about before are horizontal lines. We talked about way back at the beginning of the year, horizontal is like snorizontal, when things go side to side. So kind of connecting that with what we were talking about in social studies last week with latitude lines. I always think latitude, flatitude. It is going flat. So horizontal or latitude lines, they are flat, going side to side. Horizontal, snorizontal, latitude, flatitude. And opposite of horizontal, we have vertical. Remember, we talked about vertical, very tall. lines that go up and down, top to bottom. And again, connecting that with social studies, last week we learned about longitude lines. Longitude, it even has the word long in it. It is long and tall, going up and down, north and south. So vertical, very tall. Longitude are long lines. So more kinds of lines are perpendicular lines. Some of you may have heard this word before. Perpendicular means that these lines are crossing each other and forming a right L-shaped angle inside. So we have a perfect vertical and a perfect horizontal line that make a perfect L-shaped 90-degree angle. So perpendicular, two lines crossing at a perfect L-shaped right angle. If they're crossing, but they're not at a perfect right angle, we call them intersecting lines. Lines, rays, or line segments that cross each other. They're not perfect. We have an acute angle in this corner, but we have an obtuse angle here. So that means it is not a perfect right angle. So intersecting just means they cross, but they're not a perfect L shape. We also have diagonal lines. If they are not perfectly vertical up and down or horizontal side to side, we call them diagonal, and you guys have talked about diagonal things before. They just mean they're slanted, kind of crooked. And last but not least, we have parallel lines. And parallel lines are lines, rays, or line segments that never ever cross. So think about railroad tracks or the lines painted on a road to keep you in your lane. They are never crossing. They always stay side by side. So if you think about these sets of lines down here, if you lined both your hands up with those two green lines and you kept them just going up and up and up and up and up, they should never ever cross because they are perfectly parallel. Same with these two blue lines going side to side. If you lined your hands up and just kept going forever, they should never ever cross because they are perfectly parallel. And the way I remember parallel lines never cross, in the word parallel, we have these two L's that are parallel lines. If these L's kept going forever and ever and ever, they should never cross. So the word parallel has parallel lines that never cross. So that's where we get the name for parallelograms. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral four-sided shape with two pairs of parallel sides. The top and the bottom are parallel. If I kept drawing those lines out forever and ever and ever, they would never cross. Same with the sides are another set of parallel sides. If I line my hands up with those two sides and I kept going up and up and up forever and ever, they should never ever cross. Now, if I look at the top with the side, those are not parallel. They cross here at this corner. And it's not a perfect L shape, so I would call these two sides together intersecting. But a parallelogram has the top and bottom parallel with each other and the two sides parallel with each other. So we've got a couple different kinds of quadrilaterals over to the left. We have a square, we have a rhombus, and we have a trapezoid. And we also have three definitions over to the right. A parallelogram, so the top and bottom are parallel and the two sides are parallel, with four equal sides, but no right angles. Another one, it has only one pair of parallel sides. So either only the top and bottom are parallel, or only the two sides are parallel, but not both sets. And our last description is a parallelogram. So the top and bottom are parallel and the two sides are parallel. And it has 4 right angles, perfect L-shaped corners, and 4 equal sides. So I want you to take a minute and think about which of these descriptions would match a square. Think about a square. Our match for square is a parallelogram with 4 right angles and 4 equal sides. So it's a parallelogram. The top and bottom are parallel. They're both perfectly horizontal lines. And both sides are perfect vertical lines. They are parallel with each other. It has 4 right L-shaped angles in each corner and 4 equal sides, which we know goes always with a square. For a rhombus, remember, we say a rhombus is like a squished square. So is a rhombus a parallelogram with 4 equal sides but no right angles? Or it has only 1 pair of parallel sides? The match for rhombus is the top. It is a parallelogram. The top and the bottom are parallel. And the 2 diagonal sides, they are perfectly diagonal with each other, so they're perfectly parallel. Like I said before, you can test. If I line both my hands up with the 2 sides and keep my hands going, then they should never ever cross. They also have 4 equal sides because we said it's a squished square. All sides are equal. But because it's squished, there are no right angles. We have acute angles and obtuse angles. And our last quadrilateral on here is the trapezoid, and we have that it has only 1 pair of parallel sides. So the top of our trapezoid, sorry, this is in the way. The top of our trapezoid and the bottom of our trapezoid are parallel. They are both perfectly horizontal lines with each other. And this is another matching with vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. Our descriptions on the side are lines that go side to side or latitude, lines that go from top to bottom or longitude, and lines running in a slanted direction. So point with your finger on your screen which one is the match for vertical. Vertical goes with lines that go from top to bottom or longitude, long. Vertical, very tall. Horizontal, which one is its partner? Please point with your finger to your computer screen. Horizontal, snorizontal, latitude, flatitude. So that is our partner up there. Horizontal goes side to side. And diagonal lines we should be familiar with. They go diagonal or slanted. So here's a little review for you. Which shape does not have at least 1 pair of parallel lines? Which shape does not have at least 1 pair of parallel lines? Take a minute, pause your video, and pick out which shape it is. Hopefully you took a minute to think about it. The shape that does not have parallel lines is the triangle. None of these sides are parallel. They all end up crossing each other at these corners. For the hexagon up here, the top and bottom are parallel. This side is parallel with this side, and this side is parallel with this side. For the square over here, the top and bottom are parallel and the sides are parallel. And then for the rhombus, this side is parallel with this side, and this one is parallel with this one. Which polygons, and it's plural, which means there's more than one right answer, has both intersecting and parallel sides? Take a moment, pause your video to think about it. Sorry about that, technical difficulty. So which polygons has both intersecting and parallel sides? The correct answer is A lot of them, everything but D, actually. Which polygons has both intersecting and parallel sides? A has sides that are crossing, not at perfect L-shaped angles. And we do have parallel sides. The top and bottom are parallel. These two diagonals are parallel. And these two diagonals are parallel. For B, once again, we have lines crossing not at perfect right angles. And the top and diagonal over here, I shouldn't call that the top, these two diagonals are parallel. They should never cross. For C, once again, we have not perfect right angles. And we have parallel with this side and this side, this diagonal and this diagonal. D does not work because there are no parallel sides. They are intersecting, but I do not have any parallel sides. And E does have parallel sides. This is parallel with this. And we also have this one here with these vertical lines as well. So this would be parallel with this. And we also have intersecting sides that make not perfect right angles. Which polygons has both perpendicular, so lines crossing at a right angle, and intersecting not perfect right angle sides? So I'm looking for which shapes have a right angle and have angles that are not a right angle. Pause your video and pick out your shapes. Hopefully you took a second to think about it. Our perpendicular and intersecting shapes are A, D, and E. For shape A, we have perpendicular sides because this corner right here makes a perfect right angle. And we have intersecting non-right angle sides. B, there are no right angles, so nothing is perpendicular here, and that is the same with C. Nothing is perpendicular, making a right angle. D, we have a right angle down here in the corner, and we have non-right angles. And E, we have right angles in these corners, as well as one over here, but we also have acute angles here. So perpendicular means right angle, intersecting means acute or obtuse angles. Which polygons have perpendicular sides? So I'm looking for shapes that make at least one right angle. Doesn't have to be all of the angles, but makes at least one right angle. Pause your video to pick out your shapes. Hopefully you paused your video, and our shapes that we are looking for are everything but C. A makes right angles at all of the corners. B makes perpendicular sides with right angles at the bottom corners. C, there are no right angles. D has perpendicular lines here because it makes a right angle in the corner. And E has perpendicular sides because it makes right angles at the bottom. Which polygons have at least one pair of parallel sides? Looking for parallel that do not cross, sides that do not touch each other. So go ahead and pause your video and think about it. We were looking for polygons with parallel sides, and our answers were everything but B. A had parallel sides with the top and bottom, this diagonal with this diagonal, and these two. B, they all end up touching each other, so there are no parallel sides. C, the top and bottom are parallel. D, the top and bottom are parallel, and then the sides are parallel with each other. And then E is a rhombus, so this side is parallel with this side, and this one is parallel with this one. Which polygons have perpendicular sides? Make a right angle. Go ahead, pause your video, and pick out your perpendicular shapes. And the answer to our question, which polygons have perpendicular sides, that is only D. D is the only one that makes right angles because we have perfect perpendicular sides. All of the others have either acute or obtuse, but none of them have perpendicular sides, except for D. Which ones have parallel sides? Pause your video and think about it for parallel. Hopefully you picked out your shapes, and the answer is A, B, and E have parallel sides. C and D do not. So A, because it's all great, flat, horizontal, or vertical sides, we have some parallel options. A here is, this side is parallel with this vertical line and this vertical line. And we also have 3 horizontal sides that are parallel as well. B, we have parallel lines on the sides, but the top and bottom are not parallel because this one is diagonal. So eventually they would cross if you kept the lines going straight. C has no parallel sides at all, and neither does D. And E has some parallel sides, the sides over here, and then the horizontal lines with the bottom. Which polygons have intersecting sides? So remember, intersecting means they cross and do not make a perfect right angle. They're making obtuse or acute angles. So go ahead and pick out your polygons. The answers for polygons with intersecting sides is everything but D, because D is making perfect right angles. This would be perpendicular sides. But everything else just has acute or obtuse angles, so all of the other ones would work. So before we get to these questions, these are the questions you're going to be answering in the Google form. There's just a couple. But before we go, I have a fun little vocabulary video to watch, and then your video is complete for today.
Vocabulary in the building. Look. What's a line? Here's a lesson. A straight mark that extends infinitely in both directions. What's a plane? Don't get nervous. That's a flat, endless, two-dimensional surface. 2 lines on a plane can be parallels, perpendicular. See, the parallel when they intersect never stay the same distance apart forever. Think of train tracks or piano keys, or parallels, and remember with ease. Parallel is marked by the symbol, so we could say line AB is parallel to CD. 2 lines are perpendicular. If they intersect at a right angle, get familiar. That's an angle that measures 90 degrees. Think corners of a door, computer screens. The symbol for perpendicular, believe me, looks like an upside down capital T. If 2 lines are perpendicular or parallel, they're just called intersecting lines. Listen well, cuz parallel lines are everywhere you go. Parallels is a clue you need to know. Perpendicular lines, look around and see. They meet at right angles like a T. I said parallel lines are everywhere you go. Parallels is a clue you need to know. Perpendicular lines, look around and see. They meet at right angles like a T. I interrupt the chorus, I don't mean to be rude. Many geometric shapes include parallel, perpendicular lines. Technically, the line segments where you find 2 endpoints where a line terminates. But for now, we'll call them lines so I can demonstrate. Take quadrilaterals, which I define for you. Any shape with 4 sides and 4 angles too. Different quadrilaterals have different rules. Memorize these so you can use them as tools. Trapezoids have one pair of lines that are parallel, look like the top of a house that I saw for sale. Parallelograms have exactly two pairs of parallel lines, but you better beware. Don't confuse it with a rhombus, which has the same people, but all four sides are congruent or equal. Four rectangles, think four right angles. They can outline a person from their head to their ankles. They have two pairs of parallel lines and two pairs of perpendicular lines. A square is a special type of rectangle, listen, where everything a rectangle has in addition to having all four sides be congruent, show parallel and perpendicular with all movements. Parallel lines are everywhere you go. Parallels is the clue you need to know. Perpendicular lines, look around and see they meet at right angles like a T. I said parallel lines are everywhere you go. Parallels is the clue you need to know. Perpendicular lines, look around and see they meet at right angles like a T. I said parallel lines are everywhere you go. Parallels is the clue you need to know. Perpendicular lines, look around and see they meet at right angles like a T.
All right, friends, hopefully you learned a lot about parallel, perpendicular, and intersecting lines. Don't forget to answer the questions on the Google form below. They will be multiple choice this week. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye, guys.